Chapter 124 to 125. I groaned, eyes shuddered open. I felt a kink in my neck and a hard surface below my head, the light straining my eyes as I focused on my surroundings. I picked myself up from being sprawled across a wooden table, glass bottles falling onto the floor as I set myself upright. I almost slipped, steadying myself as I grabbed onto the table. I cast a curious glance around the room. I was not the only one who had apparently passed out in a compromising position. Fucking hell. I muttered, running my hand down my face, letting my eyes focus better. How much did I drink last night? Yes. Thanks, Drake. I sighed. No problem. Well, at least I had the sense to put my clothes back on before I got passed out drunk. Which was something I don't usually do. Even that one time with Izzy, I still made it back home before collapsing on my couch. I ran a hand through my hair, noticing something very peculiar. It was not up in a ponytail. While not something I would be overly picky about, I couldn't find the binding I used. I started looking all around, under the table and between the chairs, nothing. The piece of cloth was practically worthless, except, it was the one that Scathack used to bind my hair the first time. I felt a small pit in my stomach at the thought of losing it. To say I slightly panicked would be an understatement. I didn't care how frantic I looked as I started practically crawling on the ground looking for it. Every nook and cranny I checked and found empty just increased my growing anxiety. I paused, doing the obvious thing and checking inside my storage space both my ring and my hat, but it was not there either. I leaned against the table, staring off into the ceiling, a pit in my stomach. I couldn't help but clench my fists in frustration. The only thing stopping me from shouting was that I was in public with other people sleeping off their drinks. Fuck. Rather forcibly, I pushed all these raging emotions down. I need a distraction. Look around. It was quietly, and it was only a few moments later that I felt something grab my attention in my ring. I took out my new phone. It had apparently been buzzing me since yesterday. The way it alerted me through my storage device was interesting, and I had to give credit to Rin. She really did a good job. Saber and me are going exploring, be back later. Rin. Ha. Good for them. Even though I collapsed back into a chair and let out a sigh, I was happy for them. I didn't want to drive a wedge between the relationship they developed over the years they've been together. I briefly wondered if I was taking Saber away from Rin when I first sought out a relationship, but I honestly never saw anything resembling romantic inclinations between them. Honestly, they seemed to be almost like sisters, and I didn't wish for Rin to feel like a third wheel when me and Saber are around. So, I was happy for them. Let them go out, have fun, explore and get into dangerous situations. I know for a fact that Artoria wouldn't let Rin go running around unless they made ample preparations. Not to mention, the Archmage was probably keeping an eye on her, so everything should be on the up and up, and I would not be babysitting her. Sitting up again, I stretched my arms, leaning side to side to give my back a good crack as well. Would it be overstepping if I tried to set Rin up with someone? I mean, not like in the creepy way. But maybe see if any of my friends would check any of her boxes. Granted, my male friends list is lacking compared to my females, but then again, I think Rin swings both ways. Perhaps I should ask Artoria first, get a feel for that situation. It's not like she needs a romantic partner, and I certainly don't want to force anything like that on her. Blah. Let's see how she is in a few months of finally getting a sense of freedom and adventure. Well, I have some time to focus on some tasks I wanted to accomplish while here again. As much as I wanted to see Meridia and give Rin an avenue for further strengthening, I did have some things I wished to get done. Speaking of my beautiful goddess, I should go see her before I set off anywhere important. But, before then, I guess I should see Thorum and make sure he's good before I head off. I turned around, eyeing Sir Wiggles in the corner. He was curled up into a little fluff ball, but his eyes were open, as if he had woken up recently. Hat or with me? I asked, giving a feeling through the bond of what I was offering, either going back in the hat, or accompany me. He hopped over, and quickly scaling my arm, onto my shoulder. I just chuckled, lightly patting his head before grabbing anything else of importance and heading out the back door. There was a large courtyard, well more so just an open area, behind the companions building. Benches all around, an area that had seen a lot of feet trampling any kind of foliage into just a hard dirt ground. What caught my attention were the sounds coming from the forge where I had Mirage created. Well, I wouldn't mind paying a visit to the smith again, he did good work. Sir Wiggles sent a sort of displeasure through the link about this place. I don't know what it was, but apparently the fire here was distressing him. I gave him a mental affirmation that he could go run around. He had been cooped up for a bit, I wouldn't mind him having fun around Whiterun. I'm telling you, this doesn't make a lick of sense. Sorry, Greymane, I don't know. Thorum's apologetic voice responded to the smith's irate words. Eyes fell on me immediately as I climbed the stone path up to the Skyforge. Ela, Thorum, and Ireland were all sitting around, Ireland holding Graham in his hand and a few broken swords on the ground beneath them. Hey! I greeted with a lazy wave. Will. Thorum happily returned. I had not thought you would be up this early. Ela let out a snort of amusement. It felt like some distance was closed between us. I still wouldn't call us friends, but she was much more friendly. Maybe you should stick to something lighter next time, Milk Boy. Yeah. I rolled my eyes. I'm not used to drinking that much. Lad, are you the one who gave Thorum this thing? Ireland waved around Graham. Yes. I answered in confusion. What's wrong with it? What's wrong with it? What's wrong with it is that I can't find a single indication of any forging techniques. It split my steel like it was wood. He looked exasperated. Ah, I see. It wasn't purely made by mundane means, I'm not exactly privy to the details, but powerful magics were construed in the creation process. Didn't feel like giving a lecture on alchemy from my birth world. Ireland just scowled, pushing the sword back into Thorum's hands. At least my work is still better. He grumbled. How is my blade doing, lad? Have you slain any memorable foes with it yet? I brought Mirage out, floating next to me. I got a few eye raised as it slowly moved towards Ireland. Beautiful. He praised. The edge is still pristine, the grip is well maintained. If I didn't know any better I'd say it's never seen a proper battle. I have some other swords, if you want to take a look. As much as I felt I needed to hide secrets, I really had this strange desire to show off my collection. If they're anything like this, Graham, I wouldn't mind taking a gander. He carefully set Mirage down on a nearby table. Alright, lad, show me your weapons. I smiled, waving my hand and my other swords flew out. I started pointing to each one. Whisper, Ascalon, Sword of Destruction, Dawnbreaker. Ireland looked intrigued, he didn't immediately grab them, but walked up close and began to analyze them with a keen eye. I would ask what you would want with so many swords, but I heard about how you fought that dragon earlier. He said idly. My friend. It was a strange way to fight, but it was impressive. Thorum slapped my shoulder. This one here, it gives me a similar feeling to Graham. He pointed out Ascalon. Another dragon slayer sword. I said simply, earning a nod from him. I've never heard of a dragon-slaying sword the way Thorum described it. Are these types of weapons rare? Ela asked, also inspecting my swords. I had to admit, I preened under their inquisitive gazes. The thought of them envying my collection brought some strange feelings inside me. They are. The factors at play to produce one, it's not really something you can artificially create unless you have some very rare resources and it might be a waste to use them for such a reason. I explained, earning their attention. I ran into a brat who was the descendant of Sigurd, the original owner I mentioned. I recall. A normal man who slayed a dragon by skill and wit. I hope to hear the full story another time. Thorum seemed intrigued by the idea, I couldn't fault him with how his existence seemed to revolve around dragons. Well, Sigurd didn't only have Graham, merely Graham being the strongest. The others were, not particularly interesting in my opinion. So, when him and a group of his companions conspired to kidnap my daughter to use as leverage against her mother, I took the weapons after we defeated them. Your little fox, Ela lightly mocked. Pardon? I blinked in surprise. Oh, my friend, did you not know? Thorum looked at me, and I just stared at him blankly. When you were many drinks in, you would not stop speaking about your daughter, calling her your little fox. He laughed. Oh great. I sighed. Never going to live this down. Fear not, my friend. You are but a good father, even if you will never stop hearing jests. Thorum and Ela shared a laugh at my expense. Well, I did tell Thorum a sort of abridged story about Kunu before I drank too much. Anyways. I changed the subject. I took Graham, left the rest with Kunu's mother since the damage was a bit extensive, they were decently strong, so they would be good recompose. This is a Daedric artifact. Ireland interrupted, poking at Dawnbreaker. Yes, I got it after clearing out Meridia's shrine out north. I had nothing to hide, and I think Meridia was pleased as it slowed just a little brighter. Is that wise to carry such a thing around? He eyed me. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. He grunted, turning to the next sword. Not any of my business. He looked at Ascalon, scowled again, and I can only assume he was comparing it to Graham in how it was made. I decided not to voice any thoughts on that, never knew who was peaking right now, and the idea of a noble phantasm was way too foreign to properly bullshit my way through. What is this? He finally landed on Whisper. Whisper, it's similar to Mirage in that it helps cast my magic. These symbols. He ran a finger over the blade. Usually, I would be much more tense about someone touching my swords. Maybe it was the fact that he was a true smith. A respect for his profession, and that he would treat my prized possessions with respect. He looked up at me, then back down at the sword. Did this used to be a spear? You can tell. I laughed awkwardly. Can I tell? Lad, who do you think I am? He grumbled. I would normally call something like this a piece of scrap, but the craftsmanship is astounding. He looked at the sword in awe. I can only imagine how beautiful the spear must have been, but to turn it into a sword, and be properly weighted, to have all the dimensions aligned like this. She was good at what she did. I thought briefly of the spear in my ring, but I was extremely possessive of that particular weapon and didn't want anyone to touch it but me. She? Ireland whispered. Lad, what's the name of this weapon's creator? Scat-Hack. I answered simply. Scat-Hack. He let the name sink in. I will remember it. I don't think my sword of destruction interested him much. It looked very ceremonial, and I could guess that he was thinking it a magical sword like the others and didn't care about its creation. These have given me some idea. He immediately went back to his forge. Get out, I have some work to do. Though Rum and Ela didn't look disturbed at his sudden forcefulness, merely bidding him farewell, and I called back my sword as I followed them along down the stairs, back into the companion's compound. You know, I'm curious. What exactly have you been up to when not fighting dragons, though Rum? He told me about his previous fights, but nothing much beyond that. Granted, we hadn't spoke for too long. Well. He scratched his head. The Jarl asked me not to venture too far away while the dragons are around. Ah, that makes sense. He wanted though Rum in dragon slaying distance. Must get boring, being cooped up here for so long. The Skyrim horizons call me something fierce, but I am needed here, for now. Though Rum admitted, somewhat sad, but also a certain amount of resolve in his voice. Well, if everything goes well, it won't be too long. We just have to find Alduin and stop him. I offered a smile. I am not quite sure it is that simple, but I look forward to the day. What about you, Wilhelm? Ela spoke up, merely listening in at this point. Are you going to stick around? Did you miss me? I smirked. As if. She rolled her eyes. I prefer more man in my lays. Ela laughed. Oi, do I have to take my shirt off again? I'm plenty of man over here. Keep telling that to yourself, milk boy. She said humorously. Well, my self-esteem has thoroughly been shattered. But to answer your question, I'm mainly working through the college, with some personal errands I want to run. I'll keep an eye out when I'm away. If I hear anything about dragons, I'll hurry on back. I decided to be honest with my intentions. That reminds me. What? Thrum asked. The Jarl owes me some land, and I have a use for it now. I rubbed my chin. You think he'd mind if I set a house up near the city? I walked up the steps towards the Jarl's hall again, this time by myself. Though Rum and Ela had some companion business they needed to take care of and politely told me it was private, so I headed over here. The guard just nodded towards me as I approached the large wood doors, their might and stature clearly indicating a fortification mindset when created, yet I was easily ushered inside. The place wasn't crowded as before, there were a few people at the tables set up, eating, lightly chatting, but court wasn't being held. The Jarl, his eyes turned to me as I entered, standing next to his attendant that I recalled from the other day. Wilhelm, a pleasant surprise. The Jarl greeted me, and it felt distinctly more casual. Jarl. I once again gave a very slight bow. They weren't big on etiquette here, but a token of respect was mostly appreciated. He gave a pleased nod. What can I do for you, Wilhelm? Well, I wanted to ask about that piece of land. He blinked for a moment, realization dawning on him. Oh, I had forgotten. He clapped his hands. I had the parchment drawn up weeks ago. It is my study if you wouldn't mind accompanying me. I furrowed my brow. By all means, please lead the way. I put on a strained smile as he happily started leading me behind closed door, waving off his attendants. It wasn't particularly far, and not exactly what one would call a study. There were several bookcases, a large desk, and another table with a map of Skyrim along with flags showing many different things. There were little dragons on some, the Stormcloak's insignia on others, and what I assume was the Imperial Legion on others. Sit. He gestured to a chair in front of his desk as he took the seat behind. I obliged, as we shared a look. He appeared as if trying to read me. I am at odds on what to do with you, Wilhelm. He spoke up. What do you mean by that? I feigned ignorance. That. He pointed out, letting out a small sigh. Realistically, I should do everything I can to put you under my authority, but the actions I've made have been sidestepped by you at every turn. I was surprised by his candid attitude. I didn't expect you to be so blunt about it. I guess we're dispensing with the song and dance here. He let out a snort of laughter. I do not enjoy playing the political games when there is no need. You have shown your intentions not to be roped into my plans as it is. That's true, I like to stay out of politics. I agreed. You are powerful, enough that it frightens many people under my command. And I'm not a Nord. I pointed out. This is true as well. He didn't hide it. I have no issue with other races, but there is a pride in our own heritage that blinds our perceptions. I sighed, rubbing my forehead. It's to be expected. I've been treated very well by you Nords since coming to Skyrim, but your people are very proud of your culture. It makes sense that they view what they're familiar with in a better light than a foreigner like me. I remarked. And I suppose my strange nature doesn't help as well. Yes, your wings are a strange thing indeed. Many think you some kind of Daedra worshipper or a citizen of Oblivion. If I said neither, would you believe me? I would. He said without hesitation. I like to think myself a good judge of character. He continued. I do not believe you to be like Thorum, not a deceitful bone in his body, but you don't seem the type to lie to my face. Half-truths, skewing my perspective, I would not put it against you though. That's a fair assessment. I had nothing against what he's noted so far. So, where does that leave us? He leaned back, another sigh escaping his lips. You being with the college is both annoying and helpful in this situation. Ah, I see. You're using the fact that I'm with the college to keep any hotheads quiet. With how helpful they've been, no one wants to cause any trouble on that front. The Jarl smiled lightly. It is as you say. But, there are still many open voices calling for some more extreme action. Farengar. I hazard a guess. He is among them. The Jarl confirmed, and I guess there was no need to keep that tidbit a secret. You possess powerful artifacts, many a thing they would do well in my hands. And what do you think? I think, many of my people are short-sighted and frightened by the attacks. You are not a citizen of Whiterun, nor of Skyrim as a whole. You respect my authority, but you are not beholden to me outside these walls, and if you wish to leave, would I even be able to stop you? Assuming I could, if I truly did wish to confiscate from you, then what kind of picture would that paint of me? Where would it end after that? If a merchant comes along with a bit more gold than normal, do I simply take that as well? He shook his head. I would rather continue our current relationship, but I wish for it to be more ironclad. An agreement then? I thought out loud. You want a guarantee from me? In simple terms, yes. He didn't hide it. I rubbed my chin, mulling it over. You are being very open with me, so I'll return the goodwill. I do feel guilty somewhat. I heard some of the dragons that came around have been calling me out as well. I looked up at him. That is true, I think the name, Red Dragon Emperor, is more known than your true name. He mused. Most folks believe it to be in reference to your eye-catching hair color. He added. I ran a hand through my hair at the mention of it. The lack of a ponytail was surprisingly grating on me. I already decided to help. Not to mention though Rum is my friend, I would always stand by his side. And my heart isn't made of stone, if Whiterun was in danger, I would lend my aid. I left out that I did think of this place as almost a second home, Skyrim that is. He seemed genuinely pleased by my confession. A weight is lifted off my chest at your words. I am glad I did not think incorrectly of you, Wilhelm. The Jarl rummaged through his drawers, fetching a rolled piece of parchment. This has my mark. I found a particular piece of land that matched what you asked for previously. It is a little bit outside the wall. I do not know if it has been damaged by the dragon attacks or not. It doesn't matter, I can manage that on my own. I waved off his concerns. Out of curiosity, what is your intention for this plot of land? It is not particularly large, the area is also not suitable for farming. I wanted to build a house. I admitted. Though, technically, I was going to slap my current house right on the land there. A house. We do have properties inside the walls for sale, I could find one as a proper reward. I wanted to use my own and be far enough away from other people so my magic stuff wouldn't bother them. He paused, considering my words. I see. I have no quarrel with the magic arts, but many Nords find it a bad omen since the issues with the college many years ago. The Archmage has done much to revert those thoughts in the meantime, but how long this good will last, I cannot claim to know. It's fine, I don't plan on advertising what I'm doing. I'll set up the proper defenses so nothing could get out of hand by accident. The Jarl accepted my words, standing up. Wilhelm, I am thankful for your honest words. I feel more at ease with you around, and I hope you will not take to heart any harmful things spoken about you in my city. You are welcomed here with my blessing. He held a hand out for a shake, I took it gladly. I'm glad to help. I smiled as he gave me leave to head out. It was time to go visit my beautiful genie and get started on my home. I made sure to find a secluded area before opening a portal, and walking to a new place before repeating this a few times. I didn't know what kind of schemes these Daedric lords had, but I wasn't going to risk anything on the off chance someone saw that I popped into Meridia's realm. The familiar throne, which at this point I assumed was there for my own benefit. The metaphysical makeup of this realm was something I had trouble comprehending in a physical sense, even with my absurd context involved. I could parse it in my head, to understand that I couldn't understand it, but to see it with my eyes just threw me a loop. Honey, I'm home. I gave her a bright smile, eyeing her milky white legs, crossed as she leaned back on her throne. Thankfully, I had a means to make sure I wasn't icky after last night, magically scrubbing away filth and any lingering smells of alcohol. Meridia looked at me, unamused. You're back. She simply replied. Yeah, I just wanted to check up on Thorum and make sure he was good for now. I scratched my cheek. I may have gotten a bit caught up though. I could tell. She drawled. Is something wrong? I asked. She seemed a little, I don't know if upset was the right word, and it didn't seem aimed at me in particular. She furrowed her brow, frowning a little. It is nothing to concern yourself with. Meridia. I gently called to her, walking up closer. It was cute how almost expectant she was when my hand reached out for hers. It was like she was trying to keep her stoic expression but was having trouble. With a little bit of effort, I managed to guide her off her throne and into my arms. You can talk to me. Even if you just want to vent, I'm here for you. I pushed a few strands of hair away from her face that came loose in the sudden movement. One of those things I had to remember, she didn't have anyone to talk to. Friends, family, lovers, I pretty much introduced her to all of these as a first, as far as I could tell. At least within the context that I would recognize these words as. She pursed her lips, a little bit of frustration clear on her face. I am annoyed that the others were looking at you when you belong to me. She hissed. The other Daedric lords? She grunted in confirmation, opting to pull herself a little closer, head pushed against my chest. Many of them were watching over the Dragonborn and then you when you came to aid him. I had to listen to their incessant prattling as they treated you as another of their things. Was it bad that I showed off Dawnbreaker? They should all know now that I belong to you. I kissed her forehead, doing what I could to make her feel at ease. She squeezed me a little harder when I confirmed that I was hers. I knew the feeling, and I loved to hear those words just as well. Of course. She said arrogantly. You are mine. She looked up at me again. And you are not allowed to approach those others. Do you hear me, Wilhelm Schweinorg? You are mine and those divines, those Daedric lords, you are not allowed to consort with them. She stated, leaving no room for retort. Of course. I wasn't put off by her possessiveness at all. I am yours, and you are mine. Good. She grumbled, sinking back down into me. I'm happy. She her mumbling reaching my ears. You used my sword in the open, and showed them that you are with me. She fully explained. Thank you. I just hope I didn't cause you any trouble. Nonsense, what trouble could you cause me? Only the bickering of those idiots in my ears, nothing more. Well, if she said so. Were there a lot of higher powers watching? Many. What the people here know as the divines, and many of the Daedric lords. The prophecy surrounding your friend has been many centuries in the making, since the dawn of Nirn. His actions will dictate if this iteration of the world ends or not. A reset of the board, in their eyes, so they are paying apt attention to the ones involved. She carefully explained. So that legend of Alduin eating the world is true then? I hummed. Indeed, though he does not physically eat the planet. I assumed not. But that raises another question. If he has the kind of strength to go through with a full eradication of the world, how could Thorum ever be a threat to him? Meridia looked like she was deep in thought for a moment. I am having trouble putting it into words you would understand. He lacks the allowance right now. Allowance, perhaps authority would be a more accurate term. I offered. His situation was reminding me of Arcuids. She raised an eyebrow. Yes, that would be more accurate. He lacks the authority to fully excavate the world from start to finish. Just as the divines rule over aspects of Nirn, he too has his purpose, and since he not currently fulfilling it, his strength is greatly diminished to something, merely, the eldest child of Akatosh. Ah, I think I understand. For some reason or another, he's not doing his job and so he doesn't get the benefits that come with it. So instead of going full world ender, he's something resembling a dragon demigod. No godly authority that gives him an absolute autonomy over the planet. That is a decent summarization. To delve further would require talking on ends about the conceptual and underlining principles of Nirn's existence. Most of which would further require discourse on the birth of all creation, from our perspective. I felt like she added that last bit on the end due to knowing that her corner wasn't everything there was. So, Thorum beats Alduin, world is saved and continues to spin forever? No. She said curtly. Alduin is eternal. He can be stopped, destroyed, in this era, and many following it after, but eventually he will return, as well another dragonborn. It is a cycle, the prophecy dictates it will happen until it finally does. It could be trillions of years from now, but eventually, Alduin will end this world and another will take its place. All things have their end. I let out a sigh. Even this universe will end at some point, when the last spark of life finally dies out and everything returns to the chaotic nothingness to be rebirthed into something new. I had thought you would be more upset. She looked at me oddly. I couldn't help but chuckle. I've seen universes die and be birthed an infinite amount of times in a single moment. It is simply the way of creation, I don't know why, only that it simply is. I try to help where I can, when something goes bad right in front of me, but I'm not going to get upset about the natural order of everything. I pressed my forehead against hers, feeling the warmth of her breath against my cheek. Does it bother you that I feel that way? That I don't care that this universe will end along with everything in it at some point? It does not. Her reply surprisingly simple. It is, refreshing, in a way. I am pleased that you have a wider perspective than most mortals. I felt her hand move up, lightly pressing against my head as she moved in for a kiss on her own accord. It was very welcomed as we shared the passionate moment. My hands also moved, tracing the outline of her hips as I made my way down and felt the ample flesh of her butt. Giving it several good squeezes through her robes, our lips still locked. Pervert. She mumbled, breaking out kiss. But I senses no hostility in her words, as if it was a means to settle her own spiking feelings. How much longer do you intend to hold my rear? As long as you let me. I shot her a cheeky smile. If you wish to do so more often, I will not object. And suddenly my pants feel just a tad bit tighter. I made a promise to myself as I saw her slightly red face at my light touching. I was going to settle my house, then I was going to take her fully. I was going to push her down and discover all the cute sounds she can make when we really get going. Having her hand run through my hair sent a shiver down my back. The way she was being intimate, it was getting harder and harder to resist. I prefer your hair up like it was previously, she stated. I couldn't help but sigh. It wasn't as if her words were harmful, I also thought I looked better with my hari in a ponytail. I lost my binding. I muttered. Scat Hack gave it to me. Do you miss her? She asked quietly. I do. I did not wish to hide my feelings from her, even if they were for my other girls. I miss her every day. Did you not say you have a way to bring her back? I do, but that will take some effort and I wish to come see you first. I pushed my head down into her chest with a groan. And I'm still angry. I'm pissed at what she had me do, emotionally blackmailed me into doing, but I can't stop caring for her. And I think I'm still wallowing, moping around. I sighed again, something becoming normal in this moment. Maybe this was good for me, it made me realize how much I was attached to something so simple, just because she casually handed it to me. It was a piece of cloth, and I treated it like a sacred treasure. Hell, I had many other things given to me by her, I didn't need to obsess over it. I tilt my head up looking at me. Sorry, didn't mean to ramble about another of my girls when we were sharing a moment. I gave her another quick kiss. Thanks for listening, though. I am happy that you are willing to share your sentiments with me, even if they are regarding your other women. Meridia didn't even seem to be forcing it when she said that. She genuinely didn't seem at all distressed about the prospect of other women. I am surprised, you chose to come see me before bringing back your other woman. Do you think I don't miss you when I'm away? I gently poked her cheek. I care for you just as much as them. Well, sometimes being told the obvious was needed for it to sink in. She made a cute sound, but didn't otherwise respond. Instead, she reached out her hand into the void, grasping at something and pulling it through. I believe this is what you lost. What? How? I looked at her in surprise. Her eyes turned away slightly. I noticed you discarded it in your drunken stupor, so I grabbed it. While I appreciate it, I did not expect you to care about something like this. I poked her lightly. Meridia, something you want to tell me? I merely... She looked a little embarrassed. Wished for a better way to keep track of you once you leave, to watch over you in some manner when not in this world. You snuck a little something onto this, intended to give it back to me when I've lost it? I raised an eyebrow. It sounds childish when you put it that way. She grumbled. Are you angry? I'm not angry. I assured her. I am annoyed for lack of a better term. I would have agreed without a second thought had you simply told me. I pulled her in for another hug. She must have felt a bit out of her comfort zone when I talked about other worlds, making her think of doing something like this. And it wasn't even a betrayal or anything like that. It was silly if anything, and it's not like she was even stealing something from me. What does it do? It merely allows me to witness your travels when you return, a piece of my power in there will sync back up with me and relay the information. She informed me. Ah. She can't leave this universe on a whim, I don't doubt she felt a little left out. You silly girl. I chuckled, leaning in and sharing another kiss with her. The little piece of cloth that Scat Hack gave me. I happily took it, giving her a smile as I did my hair up as I always did. How does it look? I made a promise to stop kicking myself whenever she's mentioned. I would be getting her back soon, I didn't need to wallow in my own self-pity. Acceptable. She appeared happy that I willingly accepted her meddling. I couldn't help but chuckle, my hands taking hers again. You're too good to me. Yes, and do not forget it. Cute. I squeezed her hands. No one else would ever dare call me cute as flippantly as you do. She huffed. If it was anyone else I would be very upset. It's my privilege as your man. So, it is. She didn't refute, accepting my words. Are you aware that Artoria and Rin had left that college of yours? I am, she sent me a message. I took out my phone to give her a look. It's a device used for long-distance communications. The origin is mundane in nature, but Rin was working on making it possible to use over world lines in real time. I was going to have her commission a few more so you could contact me and vice versa. Meridia tilted her head, examining the device that must have been very strange in her eyes. It reminds me of some contraptions those Dwemer created. She hummed. And you said that Rin Tosaka was the one who created this device, that she could make more? Yes, is it something you want? Indeed. She said without hesitation. I shall see about procuring one myself, I am sure I can provide sufficient payment. Did she want to reach out without my intervention? Was she trying to establish a sort of relationship with the people in my life? The thought made my heart beat a little bit faster. Would it be possible to keep an eye on them while they're out and about? Do you fear for their safety? From what I had spoken with Artoria about, she is very strong, relatively. Not many things can harm her outside of things like me. I dare say that even Alduin would be surprised if he tried to attack her without proper planning. That's true, an Excalibur to the face would give him some second thoughts. I'll always fear for their safety. But, I just want to make sure no one outside interferes, if possible. My biggest fear is that someone like Molag Bal taking an interest. She tensed at the mention of his name, a scowl on her face. If he attempts to touch them, I will personally disabuse him of that notion. I would also express my displeasure. While I knew I would not be a match for him in his realm, I was sure I could make him suffer even if it cost me my life. Seemingly wanting to change the subject, Meridia spoke up again. What do you want to do now? She asked. If you wish to stay here, I will not be annoyed for as long as you decide to remain. Why are you so cute? I have some errands I have to run. I gave an apologetic smile, cupping her cheek. I want to set up my house to connect over multiple worlds. Should I be successful, we won't be too far apart for long periods of time. She blinked at that, processing what I said. I will have to see what you wish to create. I need to go speak with Jin, she's crucial for this part, then hop over to my birth world. I may take a day or so as I check in on my daughter, but otherwise I'm focusing on getting this finished. Your daughter? Meridia mumbled. Would it be, can I possibly meet her? I'm sure Kunu would like to meet her Aunt Meridia. I laughed, sweeping her up close again, much to her chagrin. I think the thought of Kunu calling her auntie made her flush. A glimpse into the future. I bet Kunu would love some siblings. I whispered. Dee, don't speak nonsense. That had a critical effect on her. I am incapable of producing with you. She turned away in a huff. Are you sure about that? That there is no way, even outside of this universe, that could provide the means? I raised an eyebrow. She paused at that, a flash of realization dawning on her. Are you saying? I can't claim anything right now, but in the future, if it's possible, I always thought having a big family would be nice. If you wouldn't be against it, I don't want to force anything on you. She had a look similar to the one when I first broke her worldview with my origins. A child, me? Ah, I think she's lost in her own thoughts. Perhaps it was wrong to tease her like this, even if I wasn't sincere in my thoughts. Meridia, thoughts for later. I pulled on her gently, snapping her from her thoughts. Right. She nodded. We can discuss this later. She agreed, apparently pushing down those feelings she was having moment prior. Go, deal with your chores. I shall await your return to inspect whatever it is you wish to accomplish. I pulled her hand up and gave it a light kiss. I'll be back soon. Leave. She huffed. Oh, are you kicking me out? I laughed, opening a portal to the college. She pursed her lips, kicking me through like last time. I will be upset if you dilly-dally for too long. Her words reached me as the surroundings of her realm changed to that of snow and mountains. I stood up, the snow cushioning my fall right outside the college gates. That woman. I couldn't help but smile. She really knew how to make my heart flutter. Walking through the nostalgic halls, the fact that the Archmage didn't pop over was probably a good thing. Not that I didn't enjoy his company, but there was probably no pressing concerns he needed to speak to me about. I paused, seeing a familiar face sitting on a bench in the courtyard, spellbook in one hand, apple in the other. He looked up in surprise and greeted me with a smile. My friend, it has been a while. In Thur, it's been too long. I replied with a polite greeting. We weren't friends, but we were friendly. What's the word on the street? I sat down next to him. Word on the street? He repeated, an amused smile on his face. Interesting phrasing. I have heard some particularly noteworthy rumors as of late. Rumors, huh? I could read between the lines. He's telling me he has some hot info for sale. And what are the basis of these rumors? Something about nightingales, Thalmor appearing in droves, and the Dragonborn over in Whiterun. He gave me a brief overview. I tapped my chin. He clearly hasn't received word of my involvement yet. I guess messages are a little slowed due to the situation around the Provenance right now. Tell me of the Thalmor. The Thalmor, even in Thur had to stop himself from scowling. The Thalmor have supposedly been reported approaching every Jarl that still sides with the Empire. Even my ears are having trouble getting the details. But so far, only Jarl Balgruuf had been seen kicking the emissaries out of his territory. Interesting. Any idea why? Well, I may have heard they suggested something about taking the Dragonborn under their wing, in less polite words. Yeah, that would do it. What worries me is the fact that the Thalmor are out in force in about half of Skyrim. Something to look out for. And these nightingales? I only knew the vaguest information, but they were associated with a Daedric lord, so I wanted to know a bit more just in case. Curious lot. Not much is known beyond legends, but reports of individuals that match the descriptions have been seen in the towns that used to be near Rift 10. Nightingales, champions of Nocturnal, the patron of thieves, and they appeared near the remains of the Thieves' Guild. What a coincidence. I deadpanned. Quite. He seemed just as amused. Anything to be worried about? They seem to be going after high-value targets, stealing from the rich who can afford the loss, and making it very public to boost their reputation. That's some interesting insight for mere rumors. Almost as if you were intentionally spreading them. I still remembered how he apparently got in contact with the Thieves' Guild so easily last time. Oh, I'm but a humble purveyor of goods. Of questionable origin. I added. He laughed, not even shying away from my insinuation. Any other information you wish to obtain, or perhaps any good you want? Well, I had some thoughts, but with the situation around Skyrim, I don't know if it's feasible when supplies are being routed to protect towns and cities. Inther let out a small sigh. Even I gave up a large portion of my supply to help the effort around Skyrim. Stores of weapons and armor are pointless if Skyrim is burned down in dragon fire. Well, I guess it couldn't hurt to ask. I shrugged. I'm looking for two things. First, I want staves, magical obviously, but a very specific kind. Powerful staves are hard to come by, mages guard them jealously. He pointed out. Well, I'm not looking for the powerful variant, at least what you're assuming. I corrected. I want the ones that are imbued with singular spells opposed to enhancing a mage's magics. There are basically two types of staves here. Ones that act as magical foci, like the Staff of Magnus, and enhance your spells by existing and being used. And ones that are imbued with a singular spell, like say a fireball. To be cast without dipping into your own magical power, and can be recharged with a soul stone. They are not as popular as the first iteration, but they have a purpose, mostly for novices when they're out adventuring. An interesting request. Such a thing can usually be picked up in any kind of general store. Why are you coming to me? He seemed confused. I want them in large quantities. All of them at least imbued with a mid-level spell, with no upper limit on quality from there. As many as you can get. I thought it over. I guess I'm adding a third thing to the list. I'll need soul stones, but they aren't a priority right now, especially with the supply issues in these times. The staves are feasible, if an odd request. But, yes, soul stones are in short supply with trying to arm every hand in Skyrim with some enchanted steel. He nodded at my statement. What was the last thing you required? Similar to the staves, I want magic scrolls. Curious. He tapped his cheek. Magic scrolls are not very popular. They are generally more powerful than the staff variant even if they serve the same purpose. Not to mention they are rather expensive in comparison, and they require a slit bit of magicka to invoke, making them not very popular outside of mages even more. I have quite a few strong ones stored, and I know how to acquire more, but they will not be cheap. Get them all. I said without a second thought. Well, I do like to hear those words. He smiled brightly. I'm sure. I snorted, a small smile formed on my face as well. What do I owe you for the information? Well, I wouldn't mind foregoing it, a friend's discount. He looked at me expectantly. And what does my friend want to know? Why, as your friend, I know nothing about you. Would you be as kind as to tell me about yourself? Really, am I a hot topic right now? Hot topic? Whatever do you mean, Red Dragon Emperor? He deadpanned. I rolled my eyes at his comment. I thought it over, deciding on what to basically reveal to the world. The Dragonborn recently acquired a new weapon. Supposedly it is very attuned for killing dragons, one could say it's their natural enemy, courtesy of his friend. Now, that is particularly interesting. Inther grinned. I'm sure many people would be enticed by where such a weapon could be procured in these troubling times. It was going to be revealed eventually, may as well benefit from it, and I would rather people focus on me than Thorum. I think that should be sufficient. Certainly. He nodded. Stay safe, Inther, it's crazy out there right now. I pat him on the shoulder, getting up from my seat. I had plans, most importantly was to make sure my home was going to be extremely well defended, especially if my djinn was going to be looking after it. There were a few more faces I saw, but none I was really on good terms with, merely sharing a word or two within the past. I didn't see Talfter anywhere, but the Archmage said he was in good health. I could only assume he was busy with important matters. The spiral staircase leading up to the library was the same as I remembered, and the doors to the grand room were pushed open with haste. I was greeted at the beautiful sight of books upon books all around me. Urag looked up from behind his desk, giving me a grunt of acknowledgement, before ignoring my existence. A few books floating around in the corner told me where I needed to go. I happily eyed my beautiful genie in the corner, sorting books at an impressive speed. I didn't manage to sneak up on her. As I got close she saw me out of the corner of her eye, but I wrapped her up all the same. "Miss me?" I kissed her cheek. "Wilhelm," she giggled, letting go of the books in her hands. "How've you been?" I put my chin on her shoulder. "Amazing." She beamed. "This is so wonderful, so many books and I can read them all whenever I want." Seeing her so excited really set me at ease. "Good, as long as you're happy." I had to resist the urge to nom her ear again. The way they twitched at her excitement was too adorable. "Did you need me for something?" Her expression turned sultry. "Or do you need me?" "Soon, I'll make you regret those words when you can't walk under your own strength." I was going to set up my house. It's finally time to get that sorted. "Oh." She looked depressed, and I think she was misunderstanding this. Hey. I booped her nose. "None of that. You aren't going to be confined anywhere, nor will your life change. I had the calculations going already. You just need to go spend about 8 hours every 3 days there to keep it all up and running, otherwise you can take the lamp with you whenever you want to go somewhere." I did take her life into consideration. I was going to finagle something to support the place on a temporary measure when she wasn't around. The lamp acting like a battery that reaffirmed the anchors when she came back, and charged them up, which would take about 8 hours since I knew she couldn't move too far away from her lamp. "That's it?" "That's all." I nodded. "Promise?" she asked very quietly. "I promise." I reassured her. Maybe the thought of having her hopes dashed at this point made her a little hesitant. "Why don't I show you where I was born?" I offered. "We can even go meet my daughter." Among a few other errands. I wanted a large amount of talisman making supplies to go along with the staves and scroll I was purchasing. She perked up at that. "I get to see where you were born." She seemed genuinely enthused. "Yup, and once I get everything done, you can visit over there whenever you want." "Let's go." She happily fidgeted in my arms. Ahem. A gruff voice grabbed our attention. Both Jin and I turned around to see who was there. Sorry for being loud." I offered the stern-looking orc as he looked very unamused by our noise. He narrowed his eyes. "Are you leaving?" he asked, though I think the question was directed towards Jin. "I am." Jin just nodded. Did you finish organizing the history books about the founding of the empire?" "In alphabetical order, with an emphasis on partiality." "The enchanting tomes?" "Done." "Fire destruction spells?" "Done, and I already started on the ice ones as well." Jin said smugly. Yurik just grunted, turning his attention back to me. "If anything happens to her, I'll snap you like a twig," he threatened before walking away. I just blinked, looking at Jin. "Did you get adopted?" He felt like a protective father. "Maybe." She seemed bewildered as well. April Fools make non-canon, obviously, screw the rules. "Wilhelm, are you sure about this?" Thorum looked at me with clear worry in his eyes. "The Dragonborn speaks true, Wilhelm." The Jarl also spoke up. "This is a fool's endeavor. Alduin is unmatched. He has defeated an uncountable number of warriors over the years. None who faced him could even come close to defeating him. I've prepared long and hard for this." I put a hand on Thorum's shoulder. "I have trained and sought out the best teachers." They were right though. Alduin was a monster. To face him, I would need every advantage I could get. I didn't like my chances if I were to be honest, but I had to do something. "What is your plan?" Thorum asked. "I'll play on his pride, challenge him to a duel." That will grab his attention." Thorum didn't argue. "But are you sure you have everything you need? We have many strong and powerful." I cut him off. "Thorum." I clasped his shoulders again. "Believe in me." Thorum didn't speak and just nodded his head. "I will await your victory then, my friend." With one last goodbye, I departed from them, making my way outside the walls of Whiterun. "Alduin." I roared up to the heavens, a massive black dragon answered my calls as it roared in acknowledgement, landing only a few feet away from me. Pretender. It shouted in a tongue I could recognize. Have you come to die? I will face you, Aljuan. I countered. You and me, a duel to settle the face of this world. The dragon bellowed out a laugh. You wish to duel me, pitiful creature. Amusing. I shall accept. Let the divines witness this covenant. I shouted to the sky. The loser will forfeit the rights of this world, never to meddle in its affairs again. As if agreeing to my request, lightning crackled in the sky. Humph. His voice lowered. So be it. He practically scoffed. And what shall our competition entail? Do you wish test your pitiful Thursday against mine? He mocked. Or will test your steel against my blade? Perhaps you want to try and overcome me with your magic. He seemed rather amused by himself. Oh, if you're so confident, how about letting me choose our method of combat? I eyed him, goading his pride. Humph, why not? The dragon practically disregarded me. Let this world witness your failure as, it matters not. By the end of this day, a false dragon will be destroyed. Well then. I held out my arm, a metallic contraption appearing, lights flickering all around it. It's time to duel. I shouted, sliding my deck of cards into my duel disc. Holographic enablers shout out around us to initiate the duel monsters battle. Aljuan just. If you want to support me, check out my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/Kaishin. I tend to polls that decide important plot stuff in my Patreon. Many thanks to my awesome patrons. Ben Phillips. Yamatancho. Yuki. Search 1301.
If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I'll be here until next time.